Hey, everybody, what's happening? Brent Axe here from syracuse.com, and we're live on the syracuse.com Syracuse Orange Basketball Facebook page, and we are here on the heels of a Syracuse loss to Duke tonight, 60-44, and if you're watching us live here, right off the heels of very interesting comments there, certainly, from Jim Boeheim, coming off of his press conference, and certainly had some thoughts on the game, but also, of course, with everything going on in college basketball right now, you know, from the FBI investigation to what we're hearing about Arizona coach Sean Miller, the agent situation, of course, the big Yahoo Sports report from Pat Forty and Pete Thamel, which continues to evolve, and where college basketball is at there. Jim Boeheim certainly had some opinions on that, so we can kind of weave that into the conversation as well. We'll focus on that and the loss tonight by the Orange, 60-44 to Duke. So if you are watching us here live, hit that like and share button. Let people know we're here doing the thing live, and you guys go at it in the comments. Be nice in the comments as we go along here. And if you're watching on the replay, we do archive this and put it on YouTube. Appreciate that. We'd appreciate a share on that as well. Thanks to our friends at the Bill Wrap Superstore as well for sponsoring our Facebook Live and also the Syracuse Sports Podcast, which this week focuses on bracketology. So if you got an iTunes, Google Play, download, search the Syracuse Sports Podcast. My guest this week is Patrick Stevens, bracketologist, who laid out a path for Syracuse here, which got a little more difficult by losing this game to Duke tonight. And look, if you had told me before the game that Duke was going to shoot 60%, or pardon me, was only going to score 60 points, and they were going to shoot 42%, that Duke was going to go 2 of 18 from three-point range and have their worst offensive game of the year, I don't know if I would say that Syracuse won the game, but I would say it would certainly be closer, and it would not be that O'Shea Brissett, Tyus Battle, and Frank Howard, Syracuse's big three, which absolutely needs to be on their game, all weren't, and Syracuse lost 60-44. So somewhat of a lost opportunity. I think like this game and the North Carolina game, honestly, those two teams are obviously much better than Syracuse. They're top 10 teams. They're both national championship contenders. The North Carolina game was an up and down offensive flow type of game. I never felt Syracuse was going to win that game or go over the hump, but it was a great game to watch. And it was a back and forth game, and a couple of things go your way at home, and they might have had a big upset here. I never felt like Syracuse was really in this one either, but, you know, Duke was just trying to hand Syracuse every opportunity to at least make this a more competitive game. But, you know, we're going to touch on a few things here, but it's going to come down to this, okay? O'Shea Brissett was 2 of 13. Tyus Battle was 4 of 12, and Frank Howard was 4 of 14. Your big three that you need to keep up with one of the best offensive teams in the country. I mean, Duke was coming into this game averaging 88 points per game. They go 10 of 39. That's not going to get it done against an offensive team like Duke. So Syracuse, unfortunately, kind of reverted back to some of their offensive problems that they've had this year. I mean, they were on a pretty good tear. The last 5 games, they were averaging about 47% from the field. They scored 74 against Carolina, 78, 70. You know, the offensive surge was there, and a lot of that was related to O'Shea Brissett, was shooting much better from three-point range. As we saw, Brissett just not on his game tonight. Neither team could hit a three tonight. Holy cow. First half, 0 for 20. Syracuse and Duke combined from three-point range. It didn't end up that much better total. Syracuse 6 of 25 from three-point range, and Duke 2 of 18 from three-point range. Yikes. So offense not there tonight in Cameron Indoor Stadium. Not much for either side, but Duke certainly got enough where it counted. And it was their 2 big men, both guys that are going to be in the NBA next year. Marvin Bagley. Good timing on that one, right? Marvin Bagley is going to be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. Missed the last 4 games with a knee injury. I don't know if you've been following that situation with him, but I don't really think he had an injury the way he played tonight. But I digress. He was great inside. Wendell Carter, who was involved in that Yahoo Sports situation. His mother went to lunch with an agent, and he was on the list. And Duke looked into it. They deemed he was eligible to play. Lucky for Syracuse, right? And he drops 19 points. He's 8 of 9 in the paint tonight. So that was really it. Duke's 2 big offensive players were big. Syracuse's big 3 offensive players were not. Points in the paint, Duke 36, Syracuse 12. You know, you got to give Pascal Chukwu a lot of credit, and that kid fouled out. And Pascal always kind of goes back and forth. For every good thing he does, he makes 2 mistakes, right? He doesn't catch the ball down low, or he'll frustrate you a little bit. You know, tonight, the lob pass was working because both teams play the zone. How about that, by the way? Duke throws the 2-3 zone in Syracuse's face, and it just goes to show you can be an expert on something, and there's no bigger expert on that than Jim Boeheim. That's why he was on Mike Krzyzewski's Olympic staff 3 times, for his knowledge of the zone and having to use it against some international teams in Olympic play. But it goes to show you need the tools to beat the zone. You need somebody in the high post right around that ACC logo by the free throw line to hit shots, and Syracuse didn't have anybody who could do that. And you got to hit threes to beat the zone, and obviously Syracuse couldn't do that tonight. So just because you know the zone inside and out, you got to have the tools to beat it. Syracuse got nothing from its interior play on the offensive end other than Pascal Chukwu, who got a few lob passes. That backdoor lob is always open. And it was certainly open for Duke tonight. But, Pascal was 6 points, 12 rebounds. But the flip side with Pascal tonight was he fouls out, right? And he got into foul trouble. And, Barama just got overwhelmed inside. He did have, 6 rebounds in just 9 minutes. But, he's not going to guard Bagley. He's not going to guard Wendell Carter. He's not going to guard some of Duke's best players. He's just overwhelmed in there. So we mentioned the big 3, Pascal, Matthew Moyer. Matthew Moyer just has to give Syracuse something when he's out there. He's got to give him something. He's playing 16 minutes tonight. He had 5 points, 3 rebounds. It just wasn't enough, and it hasn't been enough the past few games. I think he's relatively healthy now with that ankle situation. Syracuse kind of needs I just spotted this comment from Vinny that I want to respond to. You're way off base. Coach B needs to bench these hot dogs and teach them that they're not entitled to play. No energy, can't shoot, sloppy playing was pathetic. Vinny, bench them for who? This team has a 7-man rotation. They don't have anybody to put in the game if you bench them. You want the walk-ons in there? You want Braden Bayer in there and Adrian Autry Jr. and a bunch of guys that are there just to kind of, no offense to them, they're hardworking kids, but they're just there to round out practice. So bench them for who exactly? Vinny, let me know on that one. You'd have a point if this team had depth. Duke has depth. If Syracuse had a 9, 10, 11-man rotation, they have 7 people. 6, really, because there's always one between Barama and Matthew Moyer that just don't seem to contribute. So, yeah, it's frustrating, but, it's February, what's February 24th today? There's only 2 games left in the regular season. You haven't figured out by now? They only had 7 guys. Like, bench them for who? I don't get that. I don't understand that. We mentioned Barama. Merrick Dolzaj was the one guy I wanted to mention, too. 4 points tonight. He really struggled early. He turned the ball over. He had a couple of turnovers. He had a couple fouls and just never got in the flow. And I mentioned you need somebody who can hit that shot in the high post, right, to beat the zone. He's one of the best candidates there if you can't get Tyus Battle or Frank Howard in there to do it. And he wasn't hitting shots tonight. So, look, bottom line, they just didn't have enough on the offensive end tonight. A couple other things. Syracuse lost the rebounding battle. It was close again, 37-33. And now what happens is, your room for error is 0. Where Syracuse had, I don't want to say an advantage, but what Syracuse had laid out in front of them was a clear path. You go back a few games, you look ahead, you say, there's plenty of quadrant 1 wins that are available there. Syracuse can shore up its resume. They control their own destiny, and you just got to win some of these games. Now, Duke and North Carolina were 2 of those games. Syracuse was at least competitive in that game. Duke did everything it could tonight to say, hey, Syracuse, why don't you play along? And Syracuse chose a real, odd time to have one of their worst offensive games of the season. So they were somewhat opportunities, but those are 2 top 10 teams out there that you faced the last 2 games. They're just going to find a way. So Syracuse is 18-11. They're 7-9 in ACC play. And now there's no room for error. You have to beat Boston College, and you have to beat Clemson, which is a quadrant 1 win. It would be a really good win at home for Syracuse to close out the regular season. And Syracuse is a team where the ACC tournament, it's going to matter. It's going to matter that they win a game or 2 there, have a good showing there. You do not want to bow out early of Brooklyn. even if you win the next two games. So let's say Syracuse wins the next two. They're 20-11 in that case and 9-9 in ACC play, and that's the baseline. That's just where you want to be, just to be in the conversation. And I think they've got to have a good showing in Brooklyn. Now you're leaning on other teams to kind of bow out. Deuce Washington, I know, got a big bubble win today, and a few teams have been getting some big bubble wins around Syracuse. We'll continue to track that this week, of course. Mike Waters does a great job with that here on syracuse.com. You guys follow this stuff, too. You know who the bubble teams are. NC State, Virginia Tech, Washington with Mike Hopkins. He's got that team right on the verge of the tournament. So now you're starting to lean on and hoping other teams lose. Syracuse does not fully control its own destiny anymore. Now it's just you can't lose. There's no room for error on this team. So, yeah, man, Duke, you want to go in. There has been some classic games between Syracuse and Duke the past couple of years. Not tonight, not by any stretch of the imagination. Neither team, it was, 24 three-point attempts before somebody made one in this game, and it was O'Shea Brissett, who was 3 of 12 tonight, couldn't hit water if you fell out of a boat most of the night, who hit the first three-pointer. Just, isn't that weird how that's contagious? And it's not weird in the sense that both teams play the zone and, you're either making shots or you're not against the zone defense. But it's funny how bad play is contagious there. It really is. So let's see what you guys are saying in the comments here. I answered Vinny's comment, which frankly didn't make any sense because what do you mean bench the hot dogs? Like, for who? I can't get over that. But Chris says, I'm confident with a 2-0 finish to make the tournament. I mean, you can beat Boston College. Clemson, at home, it's good that game's at home. And you always get that 4 to 6 point swing. I wonder what kind of crowd will be there. It's really not there's no senior day this year because there's no seniors on this team. So you don't have like the added emotion of a senior day. The emotion is going to be Syracuse on the bubble is going to have to win that game. Let's see. Dan notes that losing Torian Thompson was huge. It really was. Syracuse, remember, along the way has lost Torian Thompson, who transferred and went to Seton Hall, lost Gino Thorpe, who just left the team, and we still don't really know why. That just kind of happened, and you never really got the full reason for that. It's always personal reasons, and you never want to speculate what's going on in a kid's personal life, but he probably wasn't getting the playing time maybe he thought he would coming here. It was my read on the situation. Syracuse certainly could use a little depth at guard, and then Howard Washington, got injured. So those are 3 big losses right there, particularly Thompson. I agree with you, Dan, in that sense. He would have been great in this game tonight. You needed an interior presence offensively to at least try and keep pace with Bagley and Wendell Carter, and Syracuse just couldn't do that. Bubba says the Boston College game is huge. It is. The must-win term, I think, is dramatically overused in sports, but you can't lose now. You can't lose down the stretch because then you're going into the ACC tournament pretty much having to win it. If you lose one of the next, if you lose both games, certainly that's the case. Even if I think you lose one of 2, you got to go deep in the ACC tournament. You lose the next 2, you have to win the ACC tournament just to get in. John says, Brent, give me one legitimate reason that this team makes the NCAA tournament besides winning the ACC tournament when the Orange's best win was Buffalo. Well, their best RPI win was Buffalo. They beat Miami on the road. That's a quadrant 1 win. They beat Louisville on the road. That's a quadrant 1 win. Miami is about a 10 or 11 seed. Louisville's trying to play its way back into the tournament. But where you make a point, John, is that was the baseline to start the conversation. By the way, Buffalo's not even a quadrant 1 win anymore. That moved down to quadrant 2. So you have Miami, you have Louisville. And those are 2 quality wins. But that's what this schedule presented. Carolina, Duke, and Clemson. To pick up another quadrant win or 2 to shore up your resume. Well, now you're 0 for 2. So that puts an added importance on Clemson. So if you beat Clemson, that's 3 quality wins. That is the Buffalo win. Say, what about Buffalo? That's a great RPI win, and the quadrant system is based on the RPI. So, there's always 1 or 2 teams that end up being really good in that pre-conference schedule that Syracuse plays that add into quality wins. So if you are 20-11, 9-9 in ACC play, and you've got wins over Miami, Louisville, and Clemson, and maybe 1 or 2 in the ACC tournament, that's good enough to get you in the tournament. That's good enough to me that maybe if it's only Dayton, maybe you're going to the play-in game, which we can debate whether or not that's the NCAA tournament or not. So I think, John, that's the case. And they're right on the cut line. I mean, they're outside the cut line now because of this loss. But they are, they're right there. If that scenario we just laid out comes to play, they lose their last two and win the ACC tournament. That's their only way in. And I don't think they should hand out automatic bids to the NCAA tournament for winning your conference tournament anyway. That's a whole different conversation for a different day. Mary Ellen says Battle is not NBA ready. Steven saying right before that, if Battle returns, we'll be a top 5 team next year. You make a good point, Steven, in that. So let's say everybody comes back, including Tyus Battle. So you got Tyus Battle, Frank Howard, O'Shea Brissett, another year older, another year wiser, Pascal, Barama, Merrick, everybody on this team. You're adding Jalen Carey, who's a 4-star recruit. You're adding Darius Basley, who's the highest-rated recruit Syracuse has since Carmelo Anthony. I think Buddy Boeheim will probably redshirt, but he can shoot the lights out. If Syracuse needs a shooter, he's there. That's a deep team all of a sudden coming off this team that has nobody, that has 7 bodies and lost a few along the way, right? So to follow that up with Mary Ellen, I don't think he's NBA ready either. He can score, but there's so many things that he's got to develop. He's got to get a consistent jump shot. He's got to improve on the defensive end. There's just a lot. He is an NBA talent. But to use that nobody's really ready, right? Everybody leaves after 1 or 2 years. So to say they're ready is, it's kind of a misnomer. But if you're looking at it in terms of Tyus going to the NBA now, he's not in any mock drafts of significance. I call him the scout who knows. The NBA scout that I talked to says he's gone down on our charts. He's like, regressing was the word I was looking for. So you never know when you go to these workouts and all it takes is one team to fall in love with you, right? Christopher adds a good point, too. Virginia Tech, I forgot about that Virginia Tech win. I would add that in. Absolutely. So you got Virginia Tech, Miami, Louisville, Buffalo, 4 quality wins there. And then Clemson, if you can add that, would be a 5th. Chris, thanks for reminding me about that Virginia Tech win way back on New Year's Eve. It was last year. That's why I forgot about it, right? Nick says, if Battle stays next year, we'll have good rotation at the 4 and 5 spot, have a true 3-point shooter in Buddy, a classic Q's team. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I'd have to look it up. I've seen some film of Jalen Carey. I'm not sure how much he can shoot the 3. But listen, you got O'Shea, who's going to be so much better shooting the 3 next year. You're starting to see, not tonight, obviously, but the 5 games prior to this, you really started to see that. Tyus will be better. Frank will be better. Next year's team will be very telling. Because if this Syracuse team now, let's go back the past few years here. So you were on the bubble last year and didn't get in. You got in a year in 2016 when some people said you shouldn't have even been there, and you made a Final Four run, which was an incredible run. 2015, they were 18-13 and didn't get in. Now that was by their own hand, of course, because of NCAA sanctions. And you had a Final Four run in 2013, 2014, an early bow out of the tournament. But the last 3 years, this has been a bubble team. Every year, and they've had about just the same record, and they're heading for just about the same record now. They have 18 wins, which is what they got all of last year and 2 years prior to that. So next year is very telling because Jim Boeheim is going to have one of his deepest teams and one of his best recruiting classes coming in recent memory. So they really got to show something next year. I mean, we're all looking ahead to next year. This year's not over. They still can make the tournament this year. But, it's hard not to think about next year if they don't make the tournament this year because they go to the NIT. I mean, we'll be here and I'll be writing about it, probably doing these Facebook Live chats. But, it's just they're exhibition games at that point. I was having an argument with a friend of mine on Twitter about, let's give him a shout out, our boy Dave Schultz, who said that, given the choice between, like saying going to Dayton, the playing game, or winning the NIT, he'd take the NIT. And my answer to that is no way. No. Playing to be the 66th best team in the country is pointless. Syracuse was a number 1 seed in the NIT last year. I don't think they were selling T-shirts for that, right? I would rather, just personally, I would rather see a Syracuse team go to Dayton and lose, which is kind of sort of the NCAA tournament, than win the NIT. I wonder if you guys agree with that. It's just the NIT is just stop. John says Clemson lost Grantham. It's not a quality win if the Orange win. Definitely still a quality win by all measures. RPI, everything, that's a quality win. There's no doubt about that. Michael says, I'm big on Tyus, and I thought coming in last year he had the highest ceiling on the roster. Hope he stays one more year. I'm getting that sense he's going to. He's going to go through the pre-draft workouts. He should, because you go to these workouts, you get feedback from NBA people. They're going to tell you straight up, this is where we have you projected. This is what you need to work on. I think he will test the waters, don't hire an agent, and he'll be back. That's just my prediction. But you've seen guys that have – look at Malachi Richardson and how his stock soared, really based on that NCAA tournament. And guys that – kind of bloomed late. Tyler Lydon was in mock drafts all year last year because he was a prototype stretch four. And he's unfortunately injured right now and is not having the opportunity to kind of round that out. He's got a tough gig in Denver, and that's just it. Like, you can go to the NBA and you can get stashed on a team that already has 4 or 5 people that play your position, or, you know, you're in the G League, or, yeah, you're an NBA guy, you're making guaranteed money, and God bless you. I wouldn't doubt anybody to do that. You know, like real money, not money that agents are slipping you in hotel rooms. That's been going on in college basketball lately, right? You never know what a guy's NBA stock will do when they go through those workouts. But I'm getting that sense that people like Ty's battle, but it's definitely a you need to come back kind of situation. Dan says Cuse has easily left 4 or 5 wins on the table. They have. There's been some close games they have let go. I don't think there's any question about that. Chris says they'll get Pitt in the first round. Did you guys see Pitt had 7 points at halftime today? 7 points. I mean, Kevin Stallings, what is that team now? 8-21. They haven't won an ACC game. What has happened to Pitt basketball? See, it could be worse, guys. It could be worse. Here we are. A lot of you kind of frustrated about Syracuse and where they're at. Could be Pittsburgh. That is a nightmare. That is a grease fire, and there is no baking soda in sight in Pittsburgh. Yikes. What has Kevin Stallings done to that team? By golly. Rob says, why are we excited about next year? They have no depth and more or less ragtag with certain lineups that we put out this year. But despite all that, we're still close to making the NCAAs, or perhaps we shouldn't be. All these guys are coming back next year with a great recruiting class. Clearly the future is bright. Stephen adding that I hope Tyus stays till his senior year to play with his little brother. Hey, listen, you know, family ties. You never know. Syracuse is recruiting a Khalif, I believe is his name, Khalif Battle. I'm not sure what the favor is. Did you see, by the way, and I'm forgetting the kid's name off the top of my head, the three-point shooter, all-time leading scorer in New York history. He plays in Glens Falls. So Syracuse offered him, and he's picking up some offers. And, yeah, you know who else offered him? Yeah, Duke. Did you see Jim Boeheim joked at the press conference, by the way? If you didn't, yeah, sorry, the audio was a little low on that when we were running that back. You know, kind of get caught in those press rooms sometimes. You don't really have a good mic situation. But the first thing that Jim Boeheim said at the presser was that Coach K should not be allowed to play the zone. I mean, you got to laugh, right? I thought that was a pretty good line. Joe Girard, thank you. Yes, that's the kid I was talking about. Couldn't think of his name off the top of my head. He got a Duke offer this week. It's just an offer, okay? He's piling up offers from everything, early indication on him. I think he really likes Syracuse. Jerry McNamara is riding him hard. He is going to his games. He's recruiting him. They're doing everything they can to get him. And they're all excited up there in the Glens Falls area because he's like Jimmer Fredette 2.0. And that's what Syracuse needs. They need shooters. They need three-point shooters. They need pure three-point shooters. And, you know, Buddy is coming in next year. But, I mean, wouldn't hurt to have 2 or 3 more on the team, right? Okay, so what do you say we wrap it up for the night, guys? Appreciate you coming by. Thanks to the Bill Rapp Superstore, for sponsoring this. We'll be right back here Wednesday night. Yeah, must win. They're all must wins now. The room for error is that. It's not even that. It's that. It's this is what it is. 0. The room for error is now 0. Syracuse has got to win out here and then do some damage in the ACC tournament if they want to play in the big dance. So they lose to Duke tonight 60-44. Not an offensive lover's dream. It was actually kind of a 2-3 zone clinic if you're into that kind of thing tonight. So the Orange will lick their wounds, come back, and get ready for Boston College late night. Again, hey, these 9 o'clock starts. But we'll be here late night with the Axeman right here on syracuse.com after the SU Boston College game on Wednesday. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you again there. Look for my recap on syracuse.com and all of our great coverage tomorrow. In the meantime, thanks for hanging with us tonight. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody.